Good afternoon. We'll call to order the City of Coos Bay Parks Commission meeting for May 16th, 2024. We'll start with roll call. I don't see anyone online, so we'll start at the end.
Lance Knoll, City of Coos Bay.
Bev Myers, Counselor.
Coco Sutton, Parks Commission.
That's what I meant.
Jamie Faraday, Parks Commission.
Ariane Lyons, Parks Commission.
Kirk Benward, Parks Commission.
Eric Clough, Parks Commission.
Greg Hamblett, City of Coos Bay.
Christina Texera, City of Coos Bay.
And Amy Edmond, City of Coos Bay.
Thank you so much. We'll roll on down to public comment. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Mike Powder, City of Coos Bay, and mostly I'm just here keeping my face up front, let you guys know I'm still around. We went to a bike thing, a sort of safety meeting yesterday with the ODOT, and now we're going to be getting together with one of the honchos from ODOT. We're going to start looking at some of the ODOT managed roads as to what we can do to improve those on the bike lanes. So I think it would be nice if the city could start getting a little more activity going too on what bike lanes we are looking at here, and start getting some projects going. It'd be nice to learn about them. And that's about, one other little thing too. Up in Empire, we got the Ed Lund Park, and I don't know if that's part of the Parks Department. It's a nice park, but I never see anybody there. And there's another area where the old sewer plant used to be on the water down there, and I don't know who owns that piece of land. But I'm thinking that would make a heck of a nice park. That's just a thought on that. We do get a lot of people go there, but usually not the ones you want. But it's a nice piece of property, and the beach is really good. Anyway, that's me for my 10 cents worth.
Thank you so much. One question: when you say we are meeting with ODOT, who's we?
We what? Sorry.
You said we are meeting with ODOT.
Oh, Eric and another one of our comrades, I believe, and others. I know there's three of us for starters.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. I just wanted to clarify. And then we had looked at one time doing a park at the relocation for the sewage treatment plant, but at the time there were some facilities and some issues with doing that because there was still some area that was in use. But
Right. Yeah, another thing too, you see that road there, I think is city managed. Right where that grocery store is there, it really needs a crosswalk. Or something there. The crosswalk's up on the hill and nobody uses it, and most everybody crosses there or up by the coffee shop. By there, that's where traffic's either slowing down from the racetrack when they're coming from Charleston or speeding up to get up the hill as such, coming out of Empire. Okay, thank you.
thank you so much.
If I could comment, I'll just fill in on Mike's mention of the ODOT meeting yesterday. I think it was basically a listening session. They called it a traffic safety workshop, and Coco was there, I was there, and there were several other people from the community, and we had a pretty good voice for pedestrians and bicycles there. So it was I thought it was a very good event to attend.
Awesome, thank you. We are going to, there's no additional public comment or cricket?
Cricket Souls in Coos Bay. At one time, the thought was maybe OBAB and Parks and the cemetery kind of have a thing, and maybe Bev as well for the little mini reports. And Greg, I sent a thing to Greg, said every other month, quarterly, maybe as needed, like when commissioners give their little wrap up at the end. Sometimes they don't have anything to say, and sometimes I don't have anything. This has become way more than a 24/7 job, and it's too much, and I really depend on Christine and Dave Crandall, and Amy's there when you need her, as well as Chelsea. But I don't want to lose sight. We kind of get the newest shiny toy, and we work on that and some of the others. So I'd like to have a discussion with commissioners that might have an idea of how we could kind of moderate this a little bit. And anyone that goes somewhere and could put up a poster, I have some posters, one poster, I don't have the cemetery poster yet for this. This was done by a student, and this year at the Poetry Slam, there were 5 students that did cemetery-inspired poems, and we offered an award for that. So
awesome.
We're trying to build that cooperation back with students, but it's They're still COVID students.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Cricket. Action items, we're going to move on down to public meetings. I'm just doing
Yeah,
that.
so Nate, do you want me to give you kind of an introduction, or? Sure. So it has background on this. It has come to the city staff's attention. The subcommittees are subject to public meeting laws, and so with that, we're going to turn it over to the city's attorney, Nate
McClintock.
McClintock, sorry, it's been a
Yeah,
long
that's
day,
okay.
Nate. But we'll just turn it over to you and take it away, sir.
All right. My understanding was some issues about what subcommittees or committees need to be are effectively public bodies, and which aren't. And the reality is, I think it's pretty clear, based upon the statute, and this is the Attorney General's interpretation of the statute. Also, it's just come out recently, an Oregon advised Oregon Administrative Rule 199.050.0010, which takes the statute and basically expands on it a little bit. The bottom line is, if you appoint a committee or a subcommittee or whatever else, and they're going to give recommendations to you, or they're going to give you advice, then they're a public body and they need to be treated as such, with notice to the public, minutes kept, that type of thing. If they're merely acquiring information they're going to pass on to you so that you can then make the decision or give advice to the council, then that's not a public body for purposes of a public meeting. So it's really, if they're going to give you advice, public body. If they're not going to give you advice, they're just going to give you some facts. They're not going to make recommendations to you. They're just going to give you the information, and you're going to digest that and make your own decisions or advice to the council. Then that is not a public body and doesn't have to be met. So that's really the bottom line. So any questions about that? I mean, I don't know how this came up. There were some issues about, I think, the subcommittee having to do with bicycles or something of that nature.
Yeah, so the way it came up was that this body has done a couple of subcommittees, and we were meeting, the subcommittees were meeting, and then the question came up was, is that a public meeting or is that not a public meeting? So that was really the question, was, does that subcommittee, when they get together, and the way I think we presented it before was that if the subcommittee was making a recommendation to the commission, then it would be subject to the
body.
However, we weren't aware of that when the subcommittees first started, and so we made that announcement a few commission meetings ago. And so we just wanted some legal background to
Sure, no problem.
advise.
Anything else? Any questions? Go ahead.
A lot of it was, we started an Adopt a Park pilot program, but most of it was getting information and then bringing it back here to decide what we wanted to do. And there were 3 of us to assign, because when you get into an Adopt a Park, we don't have a full-fledged park and recreation program.
Sure.
So we were mainly getting information, assigning who's going to go look at what, and then bring examples back to have the Parks Commission decide, do you like this or this or this? Or planning an event, like, do we want to go and open the WPA cabin community building during an event that's happening so people can see it?
As long as you're just getting the information and passing it on for someone else to make a decision, then that's not a public body, no
Okay.
public meeting requirements.
And is there any limitation on the number of commissioners that can be on a committee?
What's a quorum here? We got 7? So it can't, 3 or fewer.
Okay, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
And then fundraising was the other thing. If we're assigned for fundraising, we're just coming back with ideas to give to the body, so.
As long as you're not making recommendations. Ideas, that's, we
Yes.
can do this, or we can do this, or
Yes.
we can do this, but you're not saying, I think this is better than this, maybe we should go that. It's a
Okay.
fine line, but
Okay.
it is a line that you can't cross.
If you don't use the word recommendation.
Yes, you try to avoid that. I advise you, my recommendation is, yes.
Or here's a list, does anyone else have ideas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The numerical order doesn't mean anything. So.
Pardon?
The numerical order of the list doesn't mean anything.
Yes, yes, yes.
Nick, I noticed in the information that came out in the package that there was a comment in there that basically said, err on the side of it being a public meeting.
Yeah, I think it's always a good idea.
Yeah, and so for some of the things that we do, if it is a little bit of a gray area, we probably ought to
I would
consider it a
recommend that.
public meeting.
I mean, you got to remember the whole purpose, the idea behind the public meeting rules is transparency. So the public knows what's going on behind closed doors, so to speak, because they're not closed doors, they're open doors. And if you err on the side of being open, if it's a close call, I think that's probably best. We got nothing to hide particularly. Yes, sir.
So my understanding, at least related to our subcommittee for bicycles, pedestrians, is that one of the limitations we bumped into was city resources in terms of establishing these public venues like this, and the online portion of it takes some effort and
Yes.
staff time. So if we have a subcommittee and it's not, if it's only fact gathering or information gathering, then I think I may have lost my train of thought a little bit, but we basically are going to be all right without
Yes.
doing the public.
Right. As long as you're not making recommendations or advice, you're just gathering information and conveying that information to the committee as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're fine.
Like how you guys went to the ODOT meeting and you collected information there and bringing that back.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So you come back, you give the information, but you're not giving them advice. Not that ODOT particularly wants your advice or recommendations.
Well, they were asking, but.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's nice.
Whether they ask and how will they take it's another question.
You write things on the wall, and you
Yeah.
put your stars on there. And I don't know what they do with that. But.
All right.
Fair
Any-
enough.
Any other questions? No. Thank
Well, I
you so much,
appreciate your
Nate.
time. Thank you.
Thank you. Nate.
Thank you.
Mingus Park Community Building Signage Proof Review. Who's handling this?
Let me just, will you go ahead, Coco?
Yes, we had, there was an issue that was brought up several months ago that a lot of individuals, as we're fundraising and getting grant opportunities for the 1940 WPA community building, also known as the Historic Scout Cabin, there was individuals that offered to make on a CNC machine some signs out of cedar and redwood that we gave a couple of samples. This is one of them. And it doesn't cost us anything. And we said they will be temporary, meaning if they get damaged, we're not going to replace them, but we need some marker on there other than the blue streets, the green street sign that says Scout Cabin. Because we want to get away from using that moniker because it's not owned by the Scouts, and the Scouts are concerned from the Oregon Trail perspective that as we're fundraising to do preservation work, people would confuse it with something that belongs to Scouts BSA, and they don't want that to happen. So right now, the people that have the information to make the signs are waiting for us, and there's two. The one showing right there is one of them, and the feedback was something to do with surf versus sand surf. Surf is basically when you have little inns that some people look at it as historic writing, and then there's the ones that somebody said were like Comic Sans. They were talking at a Microsoft designation for a sand surf type. This machine, because this sign is only 30 inches by 28 inches, there's limitations to what they can put on it. And so this information here, they put where you could see the historic, and then they differentiated the city community hall. So this would be what they can do. The question here is there a preference on sign A or sign B that's got the dark around it and a different kind of eagle? That's the basic difference between them.
I'd like to note that Carmen Matthews has joined the meeting online, so that we get that in the notes. He's been
Yes.
on there for the prior item before.
Nice.
Commissioner comments on signage, and I think it's important to reiterate and note that I know there's some community members that are upset that the sign is not saying Boy Scout Cabin, but I think it's important to reiterate that the Boy Scouts, the BSA, is preferring it not to be called that way, so it's not in interference with their fundraising efforts.
As an aside, I think they just recently changed their name as well. Part of the bankruptcy thing that they went out of, and they started allowing young women into the program as well. So it's not even the Boy Scouts of America anymore.
Yes, the Scouts BSA has had a lot of challenges in retooling the last several years, and we have great partnership with them historically, and we certainly want to acknowledge that partnership today and in the past. But the Oregon Council wanted to make sure that we don't keep saying it's the Scout Cabin. The Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Campfire Girls have allocations of property that were given to them, several thousand acres throughout Oregon. And we want to make sure that we're honoring and having transparency that this was started as a community project. We had a partnership when 1 in 4 people in the United States during the Depression were involved with scouting programs. That's not necessarily the case now, but we want to make sure that we reflect our history because it is a historic building. So that's all I got.
Any other commissioner comments or preferences? I personally like the one with the black border, but.
I would second that.
I didn't like the eagle on it, but that's my.
Your choice? The opposite?
Yeah, the opposite. But to tell you the
Is this
truth,
why they put you next to me today?
They probably so. They both look really nice, and I would be happy with either one, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I know since Carmen's on the line, I know he had the last time we talked about this, he had talked about some of the type font and stuff too. So I'd be interested in hearing his comments. But for me, both of them look good. I'll be happy when they're up.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Matthews. I like both of them as well. Honestly, I could go either way. I kind of like the black border on one, but Coco, if you like the eagle of the other one, we could just compromise and say black border, switch the eagle out.
The main thing is to remember it's only 30 inches by 28 inches, so it's not a big sign, and that's why this is 16 by 20 to give you a reference.
Clearly a fish.
And I just wanted to make sure that it's legible, people can see it, so that when you say go there, and it will be stamped on both sides. So the orientation would be when you come up or down West Park Roadway or up and down the trail, it's on both sides.
Do we have, this isn't even my decision, this is your decision, but I was just curious, Coco, do they say what size the font is, 1 inch on the big side?
This is just a representation of how it fits into, if you imagine a rectangle that's 30 inches by 28 inches, and then you're scribing an oblong on it, so you're cutting off some of that width. And that's why I was concerned about the black border, because I wanted to make sure that it didn't take away from the words that are on it. That's just my opinion. That's not a very big sign, but the sign that we have now is 850, and then there's a little street sign that's oriented where you really can't see it when you're coming up or down, that says in white with green, Scout Cabin, and we want to remove that.
So at this point, the staff is requesting, if it pleases the Parks Commission, staff recommends the Parks Commission approve one of the proofs for the Coos Bay Mingus Community Building, the WPA Scout Cabin, as presented by the Adopt a Park Pilot Program Subcommittee. Staff will present this recommendation to the Public Works and Community Development Director for a final decision.
Yeah. Border or no border?
No border.
Border or no border?
No border.
Border.
Sands, no.
Okay. Carmen, border or no border?
How about no border?
All right. We have a majority that would care for the non-bordered sign. If someone could make a motion, we can roll through this item.
What a bunch of cowards. I move we accept the sign as presented without the border for the City of Coos Bay Mingus Park Community Building.
Can I get a second?
Second?
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Adopt a Park status report.
I gave a handout to everyone just so that we could see it. Basically, this is fundraising is being needed for the Ford Family Foundation. We did, the city staff graciously put in information for a grant to help stabilize the foundation. The foundation is off. It's been off for several decades, I believe, from reports I've seen, and we can't put a new roof or other structural till we get helical piers put in. That's an engineered process that goes beyond what we can do locally. We have the bids for that, and we have grant writers that are putting in, but one of the things the Ford Family Foundation said is they want to see more community engagement with funds. It doesn't necessarily have to be matching funds, but that the community is interested in this project. One of the things that I did immediately just to test a theory was to do a direct letter writing campaign to businesses and individuals. There was only, I think, 38. That's a low cost per unit because you're basically looking at the postage stamp and envelopes and a return envelope. We already have what's called restricted funds for the projects doing on that building, which I'm just going to start calling the cabin. And so far to date, $200 has been returned to the city in the envelope. And the suggestion was I could ask other counselors sitting on this board, because you may have businesses or individuals that you can talk to if we want to mail letters. There's no specified amount, but we do give them a receipt that's signed by the director of Public Works and the verbiage that was approved by our attorney as to the tax ramifications, because it is a municipal corporation and the building is open for all public use. So if you would like to be involved in that, if you let me know, I can get the letters to you for signature and the envelope information, and then it's mainly just putting a stamp on it, and we'll see what happens. Second, City of Coos Bay graciously did some work on a gravel trail, a trail that needed gravel on it, that goes between the Red Bridge path that leads up to the cabin. That is a trail that someone had commented on last year because bicyclists or somebody had been on it and made ruts in it. It's just something that hadn't had work done in a long time. So anyway, that work was done, but we know that if we don't install water bars and log bunkers, so the water bars are at a 30-degree angle across parts of a trail to direct water into vegetation and not into the pond. Bev doesn't really need a load of gravel down there in Choshi in the water, correct? The bunkers are to put big logs that you seat into the side where you want to make sure that the pitch on that trail at various points doesn't have people walking through it and messing up your water control line. We do have a lot of product, I'll say, on the ground from our tree removal that we could use. There is a yakisugi, I don't know if anyone's heard of that, also known as shishugiban, and that's where you take and peel bark off of hardwood or fur even, and you burn it with a dragon tongue or whatever brand you have with the propane tank, and that keeps it waterproof and bug proof, as opposed to using anything pressure treated, which puts chemicals down into your watershed. So we are just wanting to see if we can get anyone from the commission that would like to participate in that. Me and Jamie are always, and then there's other volunteers that have contacted us to get that. Does anyone have any questions about using the yakisugi versus pressure treated? Because peeling helps control bugs and other things, but once you peel something, if you don't put something around it, you're going to be redoing it, and that is used quite a bit. People from all on that West Parkway Road walking quite a bit up and down that trail, and we want to keep the nice gravel in there. Any questions, comments? Okay, the next thing is on June 13th at 11 a.m. We do have Northwest Quality Roofing in Bend, Oregon that happens to be doing work in the area. They have agreed to do a estimate on re-roofing the cabin with the cedar, which is National Park Service Class A fire treated product that would take the place of the original wood shingles. And they are familiar with that, so we would have a good estimate, because Jennifer Wershing and Christine Texera are needing to have that for a grant writer, so we know exactly how much not only the top, But if we have to replace, which we probably would, all the plywood on the wings and the damaged gable ends, we have a good idea when we're going for grants. The next grant cycle that we're looking at is the end of this summer, and that brings us to number 4. Christina Teixeira has been working very, very diligently, getting a lot of information together for grants, both in Mingus Park for the restroom project and for various things having to do with the cabin. One of the issues was getting the cabin on the National Register of Historic Places so that we are open to more grants. The difficulty with our grant writers has been once you have a building that's over usually 50 years old or has any historic designation potential, meaning it's already on the state register as being available for National Historic Register listing, you will not find a lot of people that want to fund it because they feel there's other buckets of money for historic properties. The State Historic Preservation Office already approved that this cabin is eligible. That was the first step. Thank you to Christina. And now we are working on getting the National Park Service format all put together so that it will meet the July 1 as the next deadline. And it has to be signed off by the State Historic Preservation Officer when we put that in. So we're working diligently to get information, bibliographies, et cetera. It is not an easy process of anyone that's gone through it, but fortunately, there's 159 pages that were already done on the WPA and the CCC, and we have references and bibliographies from the Coos Bay Times. So hopefully it will be enough to get us on that July 1 so that once we get the designation, otherwise we would have an October 1, I believe, is the next time frame to get that in. John Toppet's Park needs fundraising for trail markers and new signs in the park. We last year took pictures of that, and we want to try to get people here to be interested in fundraising. In August is the Dog Days of Summer and also National Dog Month. So we thought it would be nice, it's also Clear the Shelters Month, to get together and partner with some of the shelters in the area and people here that know dog lovers and have a little contest where you dress your dog up for the Dog Days of Summer. You have an entry fee, and the money from that entry fee will pay for trail markers and new signs in John Toppet's Park. That's what I've got, and I don't know if that's an idea that anyone has questions or concerns about, but one of the challenges that we've had from the City Council is we need to raise money. So those are some things that I'm bringing to you, and see on number 5 especially, if you have anybody that would like to help with that. Please see me. Thank you.
Thank you, Coco. And I think it would be beneficial to, if we could get this emailed to us, that would be great. And that way we can share it with coworkers and friends and family to see if there's anything of interest in there that they would like.
Coco, I probably missed it, but I think you said it, that roofing material that they're talking about putting on there, it's fire-resistant material?
Yes, the products that we looked at on other historic buildings that are similar in nature, meaning originally it was a shake with wood shingle. There has been some modifications over the years to that design, but we need to get it back to where we don't have the wooden shingle. Right now, there's not a lot of difference between wood and shingle because the price of cedar shingles is just about as high as the product that we're talking about. The main concern is when you have something on the National Register of Historic Places, the product has to be approved by the National Park Service. Because of all the wildfires that have happened over the last 10 years, the National Park Service does use this product on their cabins and facilities, and we were able to gain examples like Aurora Colonies and other nationally registered places in Oregon that are using the product.
Great.
And we have samples down at the cabin.
And then the pet parade, for example, in Toppet's Park, I know AAPPP, the group that works out there an awful lot, were they interested in heading that up, or they just wanted us to try to head it up?
It has just come here for input. Okay. So that was an example of a way to quickly do something that's fun for the community, get them involved. Jamie headed up the compostable bags. The city helped kick in to help us with the compostable bags, but we need to do fundraising and make people aware of, this is a great park. A lot of people like to use it. There's some work that we've done, but we'd like to get the trails redone, and on the new trail maps that haven't been printed yet, the city, we tried to mark where those new dog compostable waste stations are.
Okay.
We have 3 of them at this point.
Greg?
I just, Coco, just for clarification purposes, that those, the wood shakes that are on the cabin now, the new material, it mirrors or is, you know, it carries the same appearance. Is that correct?
Right, the big issue is that it's molded to look from the ends and the taper, and you can get them in when you buy wooden shakes, you either have a standard shake that's all the same, or you have what they call
Variable or?
variable. I think it's variable because it could be anywhere from 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. When they used to have shake mills everywhere, you could go up to 20 or 25. And we have examples of that. This roof, we don't have enough information on originally what was on there, but from the appearance, it appears that they were all standard shake.
So it would maintain its appearance?
It would maintain the authenticity of the design and the architectural information that we have on the prints.
Thank you.
And the fire rating, and you can use an underlayment that could be tar paper. So in other words, you don't have to have a special roofing system or underlayment like you do on some of the metal roofing products that are similar.
Thank you.
Does that mean we can remove the drywall that's underneath the current?
If somebody does this roofing, that might possibly be a recommendation. They were gobsmacked is the best word I can use, that there is gypsum underneath, but I understand the reason it was put there was somebody was thinking of some
Fire
kind of
rating from
additional
below.
fire rating between, because there is an active fireplace used in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coco. Jamie?
Just to tack on, I talked with Lance about the compostable bags, and we have apparently found a supplier that can get them for just about the same cost as the plastic. So shipping is free. So we might not need at least that portion for Adopt a Park patrons to fund.
In the future, we'll need
Yeah.
some more.
Excellent. Any other commissioner comments on the Adopt a Park status report? All right, we're going to roll on down to OBAB opportunities discussion.
So yeah, at the March 21st, 2024 Parks Commission meeting, OBAB Treasurer Katie Loy addressed the commission during the public comments to request commission provide suggestions for projects that OBAB could consider. At the April 18th, 2024 meeting, staff requested that the commission make suggestions for upcoming projects. The commission requested that ideas be presented to the staff at today's meeting. If the staff is or if the commission is ready to make suggestions, we'd be happy to present those to OBAB and hear what y'all have to say.
I would like to point out respectfully that when we had this discussion, I mentioned something about Mingus Park, and I know OBAB said that a lot of stuff and attention gets put to Mingus Park. Unfortunately, there's a part of Mingus Park I'm finding out that seems to be a secret unless you know it's there, and that's the upper reaches when you get to the cabin on West Park Roadway that goes to 14th. The trails, the sides of the road, everything up there are a hot mess, and it makes it attractive for people living in the bush. So if somebody's willing to, we would like to partner with OBAB on possibly having some days to do the street sides of the street and get some of that brush, and that's where we're losing a lot of trees, and that canopy up there is from the ivy. In the old days when the WPA came in the mid-30s, that was the original plot for the city park, and then it became Paul Bunyan Park, and then it became Mingus Park, and they did a lot of recontouring and putting roads in and decided that English ivy was the way to go because that's what you got back east, and it helped everything stay in place. And now we have ivy that's like, I'm not kidding you, this big around everywhere. But we're not asking people to go down in the gullies right now. We're just trying to get on the roadside and get some of the trails that are well used addressed over time, and that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Coco, Jamie?
Yeah, I would like to add to that. There was a group of us, probably about 5 years ago, we called ourselves the Ivy Pirates, that came to be in the area. And we were going mainly after those very accessible, up where you park for the golf disc area. And if we can at least get the old growth ivy and the ones that are going to seed, that will knock back for future efforts, because there are strategic ways of getting ivy out. And I would very much like to see that added to OBAB's list.
I think OBAB is fairly successful at removing ivy from trees. I think there were 400 and some odd last year. So.
Any other additional commissioner comments? Jamie?
Number 5 on Coco's list for topics, as far as the replacement of markers, if adopters could procure the materials, would that be something that OBAB could help out with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the installation of the marker, that would be great. Any additional, Carmen, any comments or suggestions for OBAB?
None at this time, no.
Okay, thank you. I think those are a few that we have. We'll keep thinking about them as we spend time in the parks, especially during the summer. I'm sure we'll come up with some more stuff. So, but we definitely appreciate everything that you guys are doing. So, yeah. We're gonna move on down to item 4, future agendas, regular meetings, and work sessions.
So I think at this point in time, I think the commission for upcoming, at the last Parks Commission meeting, we established that we're going to meet, I think it's the first Wednesday, is that correct? The first Wednesday, first Thursday of each month for a work session. And we are looking for ideas for the, sorry. Oh, okay. I guess we're going to pass these along. If you take one. Looking for agenda items for the work session, upcoming work sessions. So our next work session is going to be the first Thursday of the month of June. So
The 2-year plan is on that agenda.
with that, we can start filling in those blanks on the work sessions.
So, Coco?
I go to meetings, just so people know, every other week, I believe it is, if I'm not gone, with Jennifer Wershing, Christina Texera, and Greg Hamblett, where we work on our grants, because we have very specific grants that we have been applying for. And one of the comments when we were looking at the way grants are written and the way that we are trying to include all of our parks is having a champion or a person or persons for each of those properties. So that when we do goal setting, perhaps, for example, the bicycles and trails, when we come to these planning meetings and settings, those people can champion the most needed for those things in all the parks. Adopt a Park right now is just a temporary program, so we're only focused on 2 things. But I think it would be helpful as we look at grant cycles and other funding that we can get if we had champions for parks, and I know some of the parks are bigger, but if somebody lives in East Side, for example, maybe they would be the best person that's a champion for an East Side park, and maybe somebody that lives in Empire would be a better champion for some of the parks over there. And so that was an idea as we structure this that was brought up so that they can get the most needed things, because playground inspections was one of the things that we talked about as well.
And I think that comes back to to Cricket, and because we regularly hear from her, and so having that be an item that's, that doesn't necessarily have to be every month, because it's a big task, but semi-regularly.
Yeah, I think what I suggested to Coco, and actually I made a note here, for every other Parks Commission meeting, unless the commission, this is just a suggestion from me, would be to include a update from both the Marshfield Pioneer Cemetery and OBAB if they would like. And we could just make that reoccurring every other meeting.
Yes.
We could just put that on just a quick agenda update, and we could just add that to it, so.
I think every other, that seems like a great idea.
Would that be appropriate?
And we should maybe alternate. Maybe that would work.
Alternating would be great, because we do have a pretty compact agenda sometimes. So alternating would be great.
Got it. Who wants to go first?
I think I'm gone in June.
Okay.
Which is your next one. What is that one? Is that, I think, yeah, you have any calendar? 6. What day is it?
The next regularly scheduled Parks Commission meeting is June 20th.
So, and then looking at that agenda for June 20th, there are some things that were on my list of stuff that commissioners have brought up that we were concerned at how intense our agenda was this week. So continuing the Sharrows discussion was an item, and I see that that is on the agenda for next month, but we can, if we have time, we can talk about it. Discussing a bike subcommittee, and that is something I think we should do and complete today. If we have a chance. I would like an update from the city on the Empire recommendations, the thing with the pretty pictures that just was discussed. Come on.
That thing?
Yeah.
I believe you're talking about the Empire Blueprint?
Yep.
Okay, we can get an update on that.
And then how the agenda was set, which came on the agenda today, and then the playground inspections, which Coco brought up, but I see is on the agenda for next week. So we do have a few minutes left, so I think that I'd like to jump into the bike subcommittee discussion, since there are meetings with ODOT and things coming up, so we can get that. And now that we have some clarification from Nate on what we can and can't do.
Okay, well, I guess I'll pose a question or ask for consideration on some thoughts on this. Based on what we just heard about the public meeting, it seems like if we conduct the business of a subcommittee properly, we can avoid the requirements of the public meeting, you know, the Zoom calls and the staff effort that takes. And so I guess in my mind, what I'm thinking is if there's 3 of the Parks Commission members that have a particular interest in putting effort into the bicycle pedestrian task mission of our commission, then it would be nice for us to have, if not regularly scheduled work sessions, some impromptu work sessions, or maybe work regularly scheduled would be good. So that, I guess I'll just leave it at that and see what you think.
And then, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have a subcommittee that has 3 commissioners on it, can we have community members that are not part of the commission be part of that subcommittee, since it is just a fact-finding mission?
So just
Now
make
that
sure
Nate left.
make sure I understand your question correctly. So we have a subcommittee of members, of potentially 3, of up to 3 commission members, and the question is can we also include other members that are not part of the commission in that subcommittee? I don't know how to answer that question. The reason I say that is I remember there was talk about the other outside members being able to have input. I'm not sure how that works with.
Okay. I decided to ask that after Nate's long gone, so.
That's the best time to ask a legal
Yeah.
question when the
It
lawyer's
is,
not
it
here.
is, it is. So I'm assuming that we can until Nate says we can't. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Nate, who's listening to this.
So we can ask that question.
Because I think that would be beneficial, because clearly there's community members that are going to these meetings anyway. They're helping collect information. Maybe if it's a a community group, and then that collects information that gives to the subcommittee, and they meet separately. But just clarify how that works, because I think there's quite a few community members that would like to participate, but I just want to make sure, again, that we're following the rules correctly. But I do think we should move forward with creating a bike subcommittee.
And I think as long as we're not, the subcommittee and that group is not making a recommendation, but just fact-finding, gathering information to bring back to the commission, present it, let the commission make a recommendation. I'm not sure about the input from, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, but I'm not an attorney, so I can ask that question.
Just an observation, because you're walking the fence when you bring other people in. One of the ways we started out with Adopt a Park was feeding off of surveys, and we have been very able to graciously get space at the farmers market, and doing a little survey where you're asking particular input on bicycle or pedestrian experiences in Coos Bay, and you can format that for, you know, what people's activities are. Do they ride bicycles? Do they walk? What are some impediments if they don't do it? And having that as your backbone to get fact-finding, I think, is a good starting point, because then you're using data that was just put out to the public, and from that data, you're gathering information. That's just something we did, and it was very helpful, because then you have facts similar to the grant and funding when people say, well, how do you know what the community wants and not just a specific group? Those kind of things come into play, and I would be willing to help with something like that.
When I was involved with the TSP for Coos Bay North Bend as a citizen advisory group, I presume that was certainly after they were developing, or the plan had been developed, and they were getting input from the community as to how to fund certain things. Is that a pathway that this body can take after we've come to a decision on a plan? Is that a logical next step, or is that could that be part of the process?
So here's another legal question. Okay. So if we have a bicycle subcommittee of 3 people, and then they participate in a citizen advisory group that is collecting information, is that following all the rules?
I think they're 2 separate groups. So in my opinion, I think it's 2 separate groups. We have our subcommittee, and then we have an advisory committee. I think as long as they're wearing separate hats, I think that it would be appropriate. But once again, that's a question that we can ask. I just don't readily have the answer to that.
Okay. And then
we are recording this, correct?
Yeah.
I gotta make sure I cannot ask all these questions.
Weren't the advisory committees that you had in the past, weren't a lot of those public meetings?
I participated in the majority of them that were not.
They were not. Okay, so you weren't bringing recommendations, you were just fact-finding.
Yes, but that's not to say that that's not the current rule.
So I'm no expert on advisory committees, and I'm learning more and more each meeting about what constitutes a public meeting. But I think that an advisory, once again, would be a separate entity than the creation of. There might be some input that comes in from that, and if it's just an advisory, it's just an advisory. We're advising that you do this or that or whatever, however that works out. I think that we can definitely ask this question. I don't want to go muddy in the waters, but we can ask this question to the city attorney and get some clarity, and we can provide those answers at the next meeting, or if we get onto it fast enough, maybe at the work session we can provide those answers.
Okay. So today, if it pleases the commission, I'd like to look at appointing a subcommittee, and then the advisory committee, we'll wait for legal guidance on that. Is that okay? I can't really take action on it because it's not an item on the agenda.
We don't have an agenda item for that, but I do think that it's worthy of a conversation. We can definitely bring it up at the, I believe we can do that at the work session, but I'm not 100% positive, because that is a
work session.
A work session. Did I say work commission? Work session. But it's definitely something we can introduce and we can bring back and start this subcommittee. I applaud
this effort from this body to do that. I mean, it's important. So I just don't want to skip over any steps that may trip us up as we move forward.
That's correct, and I had remembered that it's not an agenda item, we can't take action on that, so.
Well, I think the spirit of what I was thinking of in my mind is truly fact-finding and information gathering, sort of like the way the Sherrill's proposal grew into what it came to in front of the Parks Commission was there was information put together, and then the Parks Commission was provided with a series of options. And so there was no recommendation. The Parks Commission made the recommendation, not, the group that brought the report forward.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You saw my finger going for the button, didn't you?
I sensed it.
I mean, just for clarity for myself to make sure I'm on board with what's going on. We've discussed at some time when we increase the size of the commission so that we would kind of get more involved with pedestrians and bicycle situations in the city. We discussed a subcommittee to do bikes and pedestrians, but we never really formally established it. So what we're talking about now is formally establishing a subcommittee to cover bicycles and pedestrian issues for the commission.
Correct.
I'm on the right path there. And I understand, I don't see any, personally, again, I'm not to make any kind of legal determination here, but I personally don't see any difficulty with any time that subcommittee meets that they can get public input and gather information. And whether you call that from an advisory committee or from Joe Blow or Mike that shows up at a meeting, that would be fine. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is I would make a suggestion that we formally adopt a bike and pedestrian subcommittee made up of 3 volunteer park commissioners as a start.
Yes.
And then if at some point in time we want to change that a little bit as far as adding non-commissioner members or some active role for an advisory committee, we could change its directive at a commission meeting.
I think that sounds great. Greg is going to look into if we can take action on that at our next work session, or if we do have to wait until the June commission meeting to formally vote on that, given that it's not an agenda item. So, but I think you summarized much more eloquently than my ramblings of the process of where we're headed, and it looks like we're just moving towards a vote on that at the next time that we're allowed to do so. All right. Do you want to provide us a brief Empire update today, or do you want to do that at?
The Empire blueprint?
Yeah.
I don't have any updated information
Okay.
for that, but I can definitely grab that and bring it to the next one.
In the future, when we have a bike and pedestrian subcommittee, we would like that committee to be involved, given that there was a mass amount of bike lane and pedestrian recommendations made in the blueprint.
We can definitely provide the information to you folks.
Thank you. We are going to roll into commissioner comments, Kurt.
Maybe before we do that, this last agenda item was about future agendas, regular meetings, and work sessions. And that's the reason why we got this passed out. And I notice our next work session is scheduled for June the 6th, and it's the goal setting, and that we're attempting to do a 2-year plan. I would just throw a suggestion out there that maybe before that meeting, if some of the commissioners have some ideas of what priorities we should be looking at, that maybe we kind of shift that into somebody centrally, so that when we get there, we actually have some things that we can start talking about, rather than just looking at each other and wondering who wants to say what.
Yeah.
That'd be a fantastic idea if this commission members want to email particular topics for goal setting that we can include into the staff report. I mean, for me, writing a staff report is sometimes I'm trying to predict what you folks are thinking. If this commission wants to provide some of that information prior to, we could definitely include that in there and have some talking points to present.
Yeah, I think it would be just a listing, here's some of the comments that we got coming in, and then when we all sit down at the work session, we can say, well, out of all the comments that came in, maybe these are the 2 or 3 or whatever that we ought to really address and go from there.
Okay.
So if I can just kind of make a recommendation, then I think if a commission member does submit a idea to be discussed at that goal setting as a topic, maybe they include the entire body. That way, that information is getting sent out, and that way it doesn't get missed by staff accidentally, or everybody has a chance to kind of chew on it and bring some ideas to talk about those particular topics at that time.
You're making me glad that the city email doesn't dovetail with my personal email.
So if you're, my question was, if you're sending it to the city email, is there a city email that says Park Commission? Because I don't know everyone's city email address.
You should be able to reply to the agenda meeting.
Just reply to the agenda meeting, okay?
Yeah, I think all of the commissioners are on that agenda invitation, and then also all the staff that is pertinent to the Parks Commission is on that invitation.
Correct. Any further discussion on future agendas? Okay. I'm going to call for closing comments as we're cruising into the top of the hour. Bev? Good. Coco?
I just wanted to remind everyone that the Mayfly Festival is this coming Saturday from 11 to 3 at Mingus Park. The Mingus Park Community Building Historic WPA Scout Cabin will be open for tours and giving people information about what we're working on. So if you would like to participate, please let me know and come by and see the cabin if you haven't already. We're going to have signs that look like this, starting down in the area in Mingus Park where the Mayfly Festival headquarters is, and we're coordinating with the Coos Watershed on that.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Thank you, Coco. Jamie?
This is the 4th day of the Mingus Park pool being open for swimming, and it's wonderful. So just FYI, get out there and swim.
Kurt?
I already thanked Greg, but I'll thank everybody. They trimmed back the hedge up there so you can actually see the golf course sign now when people come down Hemlock. And so I'm sure it was quite a job because they had to trim quite a ways back into that hedge. And there actually was a street sign there too, telling what street it was, which I didn't even know existed. So that was good. Thank you very much for doing that. On the 23rd at 1 o'clock, you can log online to the Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. And this particular committee meeting, they are talking about electric bikes and bicycle safety. So, and if any of you are interested in getting the link, I would be happy to send it to you. So.
Thank you. No, okay. Greg? Oh, Jamie.
I will take over for this guy because he led the school biking on last Wednesday?
Yeah, it went really well. It was, thanks for prompting me on that, Jamie. It went really well. I was expecting a turnout of maybe 5 to 10 kids, but the students and parents and staff at the Lighthouse School really rallied the troops, and there was 20 to 25 kids and another 20 adults cycling.
Nice.
And critically, we had the support of the local police department to escort us down Highway 101, which is a real gauntlet for a cyclist, not to mention youth cyclists. So the whole event went quite well. I thought it was really great, and it'd be nice if we can repeat that at other schools. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thanks to everybody who participated, including, I should give a shout out to Nicole, the city manager, because she actually was really helpful in helping ride and chaperone the kids through the ride.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was cool and great coverage. It got online, so it's good. Greg?
Yeah, so Jamie stole my thunder regarding the pool. It's been open. The pool is functioning just fine. We're going to add a section to the next commission meeting for OBAB to come and present some of their stuff. Also, just let the commission know that we were successful in the Safe Routes to School planning grant. Christina worked very hard on that, so we're super excited about that. So we've got some next steps that we have to do, so we're going to get started on those. But, thank you to the commission. You guys bring a lot of good ideas, and make sure that we're doing what we need to do as a city. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Additional staff comments? Good. No? Carmen, any comments?
Yeah, well, most of what I was hoping to acknowledge has been already done. Great job on city staff for helping with Bike Day and the pool, and looking forward to Mayfly Festival. So I guess my only other thing would be a question, which is just as a counselor, I get a lot of comments about the Mingus Park bathroom and picnic area. And I was just wondering, do we have a potential schedule on the changes that are going to be happening with the younger playground area and that picnic area building?
Yeah, don't read the comments on Facebook today.
I haven't. So, yeah, actually, Carmen, yes, we're going to start the demolition of the kiddie playground area, I think, next week, if not the following week. So we're going to start pulling out some of the pavement, the concrete in there, and start getting it ready to be redeveloped. As far as the pavilion or the picnic area, city staff does have a building permit in with the city of Coos Bay to enclose that and repurpose that structure into a park or a storage area for some of our park machines, the Christmas decorations, other things that we can house in a facility that we can secure and kind of use it more and for what it's intended. You can't use it for what it was intended because we're just repurposing it and going to use it for our own uses. Mm-hmm. So we're just waiting up on permits right now. I think the contractor is ready to go. Prices have all been gathered, and we're ready to pull the trigger as soon as we get permits.
That's really good to hear. I would love to see if there's any plans for some of those concrete curbs that are going to be pulled out from the kiddie area, and potential repurposing uses that I'll try to hit you up offline. So, okay. Anyways, I think that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Carmen.
Those curbs, actually, the reason those were in there is on playgrounds, you have to have, I think now is it 10 inches from slides and fall areas of the playground approved rubber or?
I don't necessarily know if it's a particular thickness. I think it depends on the type of fall protection that it is. That might be the driving factor behind it.
Okay, because I looked at other ones on the new, there's two regulatory ones, the ASTM or something like that, and then consumer protection, and they said that it's at the bottom of slides, it's like 9 inches. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what those curbs were in there for, because I looked at all the other places, and that's what they had, those curbing was to hold that product in place.
You're absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. But those curbs in that kiddie playground area we're rewilding are no longer going to be needed in that area. So,
mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you. So
we were planning on demoing because getting it out in one piece might be challenging.
It could be hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Carmen's got in mind, but if you could reach out to me early next week, we can put some plan together to try to save him whatever he's got for an idea.
Okay. All right, awesome.
We'll do what we can do.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and if you have not had enough of your fill of parks, then you can come on over to the North Bend Senior Center from 6 to 8 p.m. tonight to discuss the North Bend Airport Heights project. The Coos Bay North Bend Rotary Club has hired a consultant to review that park and to make proposals for updating and enhancing the park space with the intent that it will be a long-term, probably very very expensive project, but with grant funds. But we have, they have hired ground workshop out of up north, and so far I've been very impressed with the process. So if you want to come to an open house and have memories or stories about Airport Heights Park, please feel free to join us at the Senior Center tonight from 6 to 8. I appreciate everyone being here today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.